Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're doing well out there. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a more off-the-cuff kind of riff, a little bit of an observation, something I was thinking about this morning while I was riding my bike and just kind of cruising around, contemplating different aspects of the psychedelic path and healing and all that. I will say really quick that I'm just coming off of a cold that I had over the weekend. You might hear a little kind of congestion or nasaliness to my voice. If so, my apologies, but I'm still recovering. And I'm a little brain foggy still from it all, but well on the mend. And so just want to kind of put that out there. Anyways, for today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I think is kind of a problem, not like in the urgent, immediate, unresolvable sense, but just in that there is a little bit of this ambiguity or a little bit of this kind of an issue that pops up with using psychedelics that I don't see anyone else talking about. I've never seen mentioned, and I don't think it's specific to psychedelics. I think this is something that we can also deal with just in general with personal growth or awakening or becoming more attuned and more sensitive, more embodied, probably with, somatic therapy and psychological work like that. Anytime you're becoming more and more refined in your ability to perceive internally and externally, I think we probably start to bump into this issue. And here's the issue. I think there's a bit of a problem in psychedelics with distinguishing whether or not some of the things we experience are a function of, let's call it, higher resolution awareness inside ourselves, right? So a clearer set of senses, both internally inside our mind and externally in terms of paying attention to the world around us, and distinguishing that from, let's call it, real damage. So let me give a few examples. So kind of what sparked this thought off is I was riding my bike this morning, beautiful, fresh, fall morning here. And I have floaters in my vision. I have floaters in my eyes. I always have. And I remember seeing recently a thread on Reddit where on one of the psychedelic subs where they were talking about, someone was saying, is this from psychedelic damage? I tripped mushrooms or tripped LSD, I forget, whatever it was. And now I have, and they showed like a simulation, a graphic of floaters. And they're like, now I have these. And, to me, it's unlikely that psychedelics cause floaters, right? And I think this is more of a case of the person now noticing the floaters that were probably there before. But I don't know. And so that's kind of one example of what I'm talking about here. Another example might be some of the kind of visual distortions, the visual snow, for example, that people talk about that can kind of persist or stay after psychedelic. Is that something that definitely came from maybe a little bit of damage or alteration to the neurology and the person's brain after doing psychedelics? Or is that something that maybe they were tuning out before? Maybe their nervous system was better at kind of ignoring and filtering out, and all of a sudden it's become more apparent, more obvious because they're more sensitive or more attuned to their senses. I think another interesting example of this, maybe on a more internal note, I know those technically are internal, but those are more physical. So maybe on a more emotional note or psychological note, might be something like trauma and our own trauma responses and our own trauma patterning, right? A lot of times before we are aware of trauma and how it shapes our responses and reactions in the world, shapes some of the peculiarities of our personality, shapes some of the ways that we relate to ourselves, that we relate to others, some of the things that we do. Before we're aware of what drove any of that, we just see it as, this is who I am, this is how I am, this is just my personality. And we don't really self-reflect too much on why we do what we do or why our preferences are the way they are, these kinds of things, right? And as you become trauma aware and you start to heal trauma and no longer have these peculiarities, or have them as strong or as consistently, I think it's really easy to start to to get into a place where all of a sudden you're more aware of your system, and you're more aware of when your system's dysregulated, or more aware of when your system is sensitive to something, or if you're having a reaction to something, where before you might have just kind of ignored that you're having a reaction. Now all of a sudden you're aware that you're having a trauma response, where maybe before you weren't. And so it can turn into a situation where your unconscious mind starts to give you more of this material, more of the traumatic stuff that needs resolving, or more of the fears, or more of the anxieties, or more of the stuff that maybe your system was better, when there was a lower overall level of awareness. Your system was good at filtering out and just kind of putting in the background. And yes, it was impacting you and shaping your experience of life, but you really didn't notice it at all. And all of a sudden you notice it. And so I think there's an interesting question here that I don't think we have a really good answer to, which is, is it that we're noticing it more, which is kind of what I've been suggesting and what I'm saying, or is it that, these are kind of byproducts of doing psychedelics, is as we, resolve stuff or heal more, maybe there is neurological damage, or maybe there is more trauma that happens along the way, as a result of resolving trauma that comes to the surface, or maybe more minor versions of trauma that come to the surface. And I don't think it's immediately clear what's what. And I just kind of want to point this out as, again, not a major pressing problem. I don't think it's something we can immediately figure out. I don't think it's something that really is the major piece to worry about when it comes to self-healing with psychedelics, or increasing our awareness as, spiritual beings, or any of that stuff. I don't think this is a pressing issue, but I do think it's kind of a deeper nuance here, where it's like, yeah, I'm noticing these new experiences. Are these new experiences things that have always been there, that I've kind of been filtering out and just wasn't attuned to? Now I'm more attuned to myself. Or are these experiences now maybe byproducts of something about my growth path or my healing path? And I don't know. I don't have a solid answer. I just want to present this problem, just present this idea to you guys as something to think about. So I don't know, maybe you can think of more examples of this kind of, high resolution awareness versus damage kind of conundrum here, and making this distinction. Maybe you have other examples that you'd like to mention and add in the comment section down below. Maybe you think this is nonsense. Maybe you think this is pointless. But yeah, I'd love to know what you think. Either way, I just thought I'd kind of put this video out there as just like a little philosophical think piece about, again, some of the nuances here that I think probably you're not going to see most psychedelic therapists talk about. You're not going to see people who are involved in the science talk about, because not only are we getting into the minutia of our experience here, these are also things that would not be politically convenient for a movement that's trying to legalize and legitimize right now. So I don't really have a solid answer. But I do know that I see a lot of comments online of people who notice these new things after using psychedelics that, according to them, weren't a feature of their lived experience before. And I don't know why that is, but I think it's worth kind of bringing up and just adding into the conversation here. So anyways, that's really my point for this video. That's all I really have to say today on this. And I'd love to know what you think. And I have more content on the way, and yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Take care. Talk to you soon.